What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Black and Gold. This is HiBruiNation Bare Naked News Edition. Woo! I'm Goosey here with Higgy and Matty V to bring you the latest. Fellas, we got news. Jim Montgomery.
Big news.
Jim Montgomery has been relieved of his coaching duties and has been replaced by Joe Sacco after an embarrassing 5-1 loss to the Columbus Dirt Jackets.
The Columbus Dirt Boys, who you said before in our last episode, episode 20, they are just dirt, and we should beat them up, and they just blew our doors off on our own ice, which was very embarrassing, leading to, obviously, seems like a long-awaited coaching change. Kyle, let me see that jersey you're wearing right now.
Douchebag.
Got the Dirt Boys merch on. I figured if there was ever a time to drag it out, we should pay homage to the team that put the nail in the coffin for what has to be the ugliest start to a season that we've witnessed, at least in our adult fandom lives. I'm sure we could stretch it out for our actual lifetime, but for as long as I know I've been actually paying attention to the team and really locked in, this has got to be the ugliest start to a season I've had to see.
Sure. And, Montgomery had a solid record with the Bruins, right? He was 120, 41, and 23 with Boston since his inception here with the team. Not so great news, though, because Boston now has become one of the only teams in an 8-year time span to fire 2 Jack Adams Award finalists, being Montgomery himself and Bruce Cassidy. So... not great if you think about it, fellas. Not great. But
nope.
It was coming. We talked about and
I'm sorry to cut you off. There was so much just piled up. Like we said, it's a long time coming. People said it after last year's playoff exit. There was just so much going on. There's obviously needs to be a fall guy every time a team's in this situation. It's usually the head coach, and that's what we're seeing now.
And I don't think there's anything more telling than the fact that you came into the season without him locked up. It was like that immediately out of the gate before they ever touched the ice was raising question marks of what their plan was with him, whether they thought that he was the coach moving forward anyway. So it was like as soon as you saw them start to stumble out of the gate, the question started immediately. So it's just like if they felt he was the guy and had him locked up, maybe the hot seat conversations wouldn't have started had they not left him sort of hanging as a lame duck.
I mean, he had his downfalls were certainly the line juggling, the poor start compared to the previous years and it wasn't even just a poor start. There was no vision in sight. Things were not getting better. I was at the game last night and it was painful. It was beyond painful to watch a team like Columbus just run circles around you in the offense, in your own defensive end. It was crazy. Swayman couldn't stop a beach ball. It was just horrible to watch. And, obviously the other downfall that he had was the lack of advancement in playoffs. I will contest that. I know a lot of fans say that the 2022-2023 season was a lost cause, but look what Florida did the year after last year. They won the Stanley Cup. You know what I mean? Things happen. And fans can disagree with me, but I think we did end up advancing this past year. So I'm willing to cut him a little slack, not a lot of slack.
It did seem like going into this year, they were kind of under the impression that actually it came out after they announced that, or at least I saw it after they announced that the deal was done and Montgomery was out. Spit and Chicklets, they made it a point to say that, or I think it was an earlier episode, but they brought up they mentioned it again today that so they had heard that before the season that the front office had approached Sacco before the season started, saying that Montgomery had a short leash, and when that happens, like, be ready because you're the next guy, which is a wild thing to say, and to go behind your head coach's back for that.
At that point, don't go into the season with him, and it's like there's no way that if that's getting out to media outlets that there wasn't some inkling of that sort of attitude in the room.
Yeah, if you're going to revamp
I actually hadn't seen that. That's brutal.
If you're going to revamp the roster by bringing in, I would say higher end talent in the form of Nikita Zadorov. I mean, we can argue that with his penalty taking. But Elias Lindholm and you improve the team in terms of some depth pieces that were clearly missing and size and missing. But if you're already going into the season with a revamped roster and you know that these guys are going to take time to adjust, but if you're already having that doubt that he's not going to be able to reel it in, and you definitely have to understand Joe Sacco probably said something to Montgomery, right? Like there's got to be solidarity somewhere that if that conversation was actually had between
That's an aside. I would have assumed that management wouldn't have said it to him. So how can you assume that he mentioned it to Montgomery?
that's fair. So it's still very fair. So I think you're going to tell me from game one, where you play the Florida Panthers, who are coming off of a Stanley Cup high, that your job's on the line. I mean, sure, I guess. I think there were other
You're
things
already
that
looking over your
added to
shoulder
it.
before you're out of the gate.
Yeah, I don't think he had that much of a fair opportunity, but he's had 2 years, and I mean, to be, I think, the only NHL team to do this to 2 Jack Adams finalists, again, going back to Cassidy and Montgomery. Montgomery's record speaks, for that. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I have mixed feelings about it. I think it had to happen. I think a shakeup had to happen, but I don't know. I don't know.
I thought
I'm
I
not a
knew it was
huge.
coming. He was going to be on the hot seat for a while. Sorry, Kyle.
Yeah, no worries. I was just gonna say I'm not a huge Montgomery guy to begin with. But I also don't. I think that he's simply just a scapegoat here. I don't think what we're seeing on the ice can fully be attributed to him. I think it's just the easiest moving piece that you can make a change. Obviously, you can't. It's not like you can go in and fire people off the roster. It's just like, what shakeup can we do that doesn't impact or involve making a trade or sending somebody down or doing this or doing that. It's the one large moving piece that you can actually make a change with. As far as Montgomery goes, I think he was a voice change that you felt you needed at the time, going from a reported hard ass in Cassidy to a bit of a player's coach. He inherited potentially one of the best leadership groups, maybe at least of our lifetime for sure. So he just sort of had to come in and be more of a game manager or I guess a room manager. And I feel like that's sort of what he is, or at least what he's shown to be. My issues with him was never him or his mentality. It was like the lack of ability to make adjustments and like what his system actually entailed. So on the one hand, I think that he is just a scapegoat, but on the other side, I can't say that I'm gonna miss his system or what I thought he did for a lot of the players. Like I don't think that he was elevating what little talent he was given. Now
I
again, is
don't
that his fault or is that the fact that the team sucks?
I don't think it was his lack of ability to make adjustments. He just made too many adjustments. He never let anything try
Or the
to
wrong
solidify
ones.
stuff, or the wrong ones. Yes. So it was either doing it too much. A combination of both, right? Because when you make too much, you're likely making a mistake somewhere in that regard. So I don't think it was his unwillingness to make the adjustments. I think it was I think he just wasn't making the correct ones at the right time, and I think his timing on it was bad. He's going to get picked up. He's going to get picked up almost immediately. So, Pittsburgh is struggling. I wouldn't be surprised where if they fire Mike Sullivan and maybe he goes there to Pittsburgh because you have a strong core leadership group in the form of Sidney Crosby there and getting Malkin. So maybe that also helps out. I mean, he's a good coach at the end of the day. Again, fans will disagree with me here, but I don't know. You mentioned that it wasn't just him and the problems probably run deeper than that. Elliot Friedman pointed out that in the locker room, it seems like the locker room has turned against Swayman. I don't know if this has also contributed to the team's poor play, but when when one domino falls, the rest seem to follow suit, right? So,
if that is true, that's a. We've been saying it all season. There's got to be a much bigger issue at play as to why the team is performing the way that they are. I don't think it's 100% the coach. It might be in the locker room, and if that's true, then the Swayman thing is a huge factor. I do think that getting rid of Montgomery and bringing in, just promoting Sacco, is putting a Band-Aid on the situation, maybe just to get through the season. Like Kyle said, as a scapegoat, just like, hey, we're working on it. But I think it's just putting a Band-Aid on a much bigger problem, and we'll see how it goes.
I think what could have been part of the issue too is because you saw Marchand get frustrated with Montgomery at times. He said it during press conferences, like, we'd like to play with each other for a little bit before you just start throwing us in a blender. It's basically what he said without saying it, right? I think he handled it in a much professional manner. Him and Montgomery, last night they were going at it again on the bench where Montgomery was talking at him. That's your captain, right? So I think their relationship, or just in general, a coach and his captain's relationship needs to be solid. They need to be on the same page. And I feel like that at a point in time, they lost it. I've heard speculation that some people think it's Marchand. I'm not inclined to believe that. The man is a seasoned veteran, and he's been an alternate captain for at least 10 years. And then he gains the captaincy. So I don't think it's him, but I would look at the people around him and the relationships that he's built around them.
Yeah, I don't think it's him either. I think that if anything, he's kind of, the voice for the frustration of the team. You only see it, you could see it on Saturday on the bench. Him and Montgomery got into it a little bit on the bench. Nothing crazy, but it's not the first time you've seen them disagree publicly. I think that he's being like you said, he has leadership experience, and I think that he's being a voice for the team because we're frustrated watching it. Imagine playing and having to deal with this every day.
Yep. No, I agree. Imagine, getting told you're not doing good enough. You're not doing well enough day in and day out, right? Go ahead, Higgy.
I was going to say, I'm not even willing to say entirely that it isn't partially him. I mean, we can say that he's got leadership experience and all of this, but if the room's literally turning against their goalie and against themselves and against the coach, you're the captain. You're steering that ship. That is partially your responsibility to get the room in line. So if he can't and everybody else has sort of just gone to shit, then that's indicative of a bigger problem. But that is still part of his responsibility as the captain.
Sure, but I just play devil's advocate. I'll contest that. You know what I mean? Let's say he did do his job. He said, guys, he held out, and we're going back to the Swayman thing, or just diving into it. If they're upset that he held out, and everything else that is associated with that, missing camp, and then getting paid all this money. And then, maybe it's the way Swayman came in the locker room and talked about it. I don't know. NHL locker rooms are really tight, dude. You're never going to know the full story. We're never going to know anything. But, I wouldn't doubt it that even Marchand and Montgomery both said, who cares? He's here. But this is what we wanted. We're glad he's here. He's our teammate at the end of the day. I bet you that was said. But if other players are just not willing to let it go, then that's on them. That's their issue. And those players should be dealt with appropriately. And Marchand should speak up on that. I'm sure Jim Montgomery has too. But, I don't know. That stuff we're never going to know. But that's why I would contest. I'm pretty sure Marchand is doing his job, but there's only so much.
Yeah, it's like if everybody's tuning everybody out, then it doesn't matter really what you're saying.
Exactly. But that's just rumors.
Moving forward, Joe Sacco is now at the helm. What do you guys expect from him?
Well, what about him? You know what I mean? He was the assistant coach of the Lowell Lock Monsters for 2 years. And then
by the way, coolest team in history.
Sure.
Bring back the Lock Monsters.
And then he was
promoted. Still got my souvenir cup.
God. And then he was promoted to the head coach of the AHL Lake Erie Monsters until 2009. And then he was the Colorado Avalanche from 2009 to 2013. As a head coach himself, he's 130, 134, and 30. A lot of threes. So I don't know. Three's a lucky number. It's a lot, dude. It's a lot of threes.
It's a lot of threes. It's the head coach equivalent of the Bruins season so far.
Sure.
Just barely under
500.
Yeah.
So, and he coached the 2010 Avs to the playoffs after projecting that they weren't going to do anything. So maybe there's hope there. He was also a Jack Adams finalist in 2010. Wouldn't it be funny if we got rid of him within a year? That would be 3 Jack Adams finalists.
He was, again, his first year coaching in Colorado. It was 2010. He was a finalist for the Jack Adams. So, obviously he hopefully knows what he's doing running the team.
He's also been here since 2014. So he spent 10 years with the club. He should know how to do something with this team. He should know this roster inside and out. He should know the system inside and out. He's seen a lot. He's been through a lot with Boston. So I don't know. I don't think the Bruins are going to be in a rush to replace Montgomery or Sacco. With another head coach like Daryl Sutter or whoever else, that may be. So I fully anticipate Joe Sacco to ride out the rest of the year.
I think that he will finish the year. Going into next year, I think that there's for sure a conversation to be had on who's going to be behind the bench. But I do think that he is going to ride out the rest of the year.
I think so too. I mean, there's plenty of coaches available, I think, as of right now. But again, I don't think this is a decision that they need to rush into. I think they have their first round pick this year. And I think Sweeney also needs to go. If we get a lottery pick, for the love of God, that man, just don't let him touch it. No touchy. I don't care. Just no. Fire him too.
He's the next one. If things don't get better, he's the next one to go.
It's hard to get him though, because that bastard and Don Sweeney literally makes it difficult to fire, because you're just like, well, he didn't do enough, and then he gets you Elias Lindholm, then he gets you Zadorov, and you're like, fuck. Really hard to get rid of him. But if you
when teams are underperforming like this, and like you said, yep. we fired 2 Jack Adams finalists who were. I thought Cassidy was. I liked him. here.
Yeah,
Montgomery.
Jake DeBrusk wasn't happy.
Say what you want about him, but like you said, he coached the team to a record-winning season. Obviously, couldn't do anything in the playoffs. But when things go bad, you need a scapegoat. It usually starts with the head coach. Then who's after that if things don't get better?
And they're not going to get away with the players right now. You can't. Half this team has no movement clauses or modified no trade clauses, dude. And we saw scouts, or saw that it was reported that several scouts from different teams were at these Bruins games recently. So you got to figure they're looking at some players. Geeky's got to be one of them. Probably Trent Frederick. I don't think the Bruins are going to get rid of Trent unless Trent wants out.
This is the last year of his contract, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
So
he could walk. No, I think he's an RFA. And then you also have Coyle. Coyle has a modified no trade clause. Those are the only players that will likely garner any type of look from any other organization. What, you think Justin Brazeau is going to garner you anything? No. But Don Sweeney's going to need to pull some magic. So as far as I'm concerned, he's also on the hot seat. So I don't know. But Joe Sacco is our head coach as of right now, interim or not.
I feel good about it.
It's hard not to. I
feel good. He's been with the team for 10 years. He knows the team. He knows the club. He knows the culture. Mm-hmm. I feel good about it. Whether or not he's going to lead us to a Stanley Cup, I don't think so. But I think that this is step one in turning things around.
I think so. And we don't have Jake DeBrusk to bitch out a coach.
Get shot in the arm.
That's the only reason why Cassidy was fired, was because Jake DeBrusk. There was an issue with Jake DeBrusk, and it caught fire in the locker room. That's why.
Do you think any extension of that was the Sweeney factor of trying to protect the one asset that he did manage to get out of that godforsaken draft?
Yeah, no one else from the 2015 draft is still present on this team.
So he had to sort of do his best to keep DeBrusk in the picture, because it would have looked even that much worse if he were to finally lose the one quote unquote asset that he did get out of that. And again, I don't really hold that draft against him. They hired him a month before the draft with 0 primer. But it was that's sort of been the defining factor of his entire tenure, is everything goes back to that first draft and how much it was bungled.
I don't care if you were hired within 1 month of that and you have no standing. You have scouts for that. You have scouts that tell you have an entire
devil's advocate in every situation except this.
I don't know, because I freaking hate this man, bro. I don't give a shit. You're telling me you have a bunch of world-class scouts out in front of you being like, Matthew Barzal is really good, Thomas Chabot's really good, and he's just sitting there being like, fuck, dude, Zach Senyshyn, he's going to be the next Gretzky. Let's take him. Let's take Jacob Zaboral. Let's take Jake DeBrusk. Awesome.
Never forget that it was all for Noah Hannafin to begin with.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, whatever. But no, going back to Sacco, you have to feel good about it. You can't want the guy to fail. You want him to succeed. You want the players to respond to him appropriately. And the wish list, right? Let's talk about it. There has to be roster consistency. Biggest issue.
That's my biggest concern is consistency. There was not a ton of it at all under Montgomery. I'm interested to see how Sacco plays it, but consistency is the biggest thing for me.
Accountability and discipline, right? We talked about this on several times. We're taking too many penalties. And it's not just the coach taking the accountability, but now that you've seen what's happening, or the players see this, coach is gone. Nobody's safe, right? Normally when people see that, if the coach can go, anyone can go. Well, I guess. But now they might have to hold themselves accountable because it's no secret, like we just said, there are scouts in the rafters. Right?
Yeah, and I think that'll we talked about it last episode. Hopefully that translates to more disciplined hockey. I don't know how they're going to do that. Cut down on the stupid penalties. Just play more discipline. I think hold it like you said, hold them accountable.
Yep. And the last thing for me, and it's extremely important, you need to have a good relationship with Marchand. You if you don't, it immediately goes south. It doesn't matter whether you have roster consistency, accountability, and discipline. Two great things that we've mentioned that was plaguing this team. But if you don't have a relationship with that captain or your alternates, the message needs to be clear.
Kyle, do you think that's going to be an issue? Because Sacco's, like we said, he's been here for 10 years, so he obviously has some sort of relationship with Marchand. He's worked with him for his entire career here, and do you think that'll be an issue or no?
No, I don't think so. I think out of the gate, you're going to see the shot in the arm. I hope, at least, you're going to see the shot in the arm where everybody sort of wakes up, everybody perks up, everybody has a new voice sort of pulling. They think they see a light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe they buy in. Maybe there was some chatter where they weren't sure about whether or not Montgomery would have been the guy to begin with. And now they feel like they can sort of settle into some sort of new routine that they at least know will carry the rest of the year. And I do think from everything you've heard, Sacco's been a well-respected coach for this team for, again, a decade now. Yeah. Obviously, like he had sort of his specialty. I know he was sort of like the driver behind the PK. But Marchand was a big key in that. He's leads the league in shorthanded goals. So I think that the two of them have probably spent quite a bit of time working together. And I don't think a room respect issue is going to be a thing, even though he has the interim tag.
I want to bring this point up about Joe Sacco. He has survived 3 coaching changes as of right now. He was on the team when Claude left. He was on the team when Cassidy left, and now he's the interim head coach in lieu of the Monty firing. So there's got to be something he's done right to stay there for 10 years and survive those 3 firings. You know what I mean? Something's good.
Yeah, I think it's because he played at Medford High.
Yeah, Medford's finest.
Yeah. Take note, boys. Take note. Mayor of Medford. He's the MM. He's the real M&M. But I don't know. I'm hopeful. We have Utah on Thursday. We have Detroit on Saturday. And we got to come out and beat the pants off of one of those teams because Utah is at TD. Detroit, away. But at that game at TD, you gotta make a statement because right now it's like I said. I was there last night. Booze. People were spending more time chanting Swayman's contract value than cheering for the Bruins. Something's got to be done, and it was done.
Yeah, I saw it online, and I heard it a little bit on TV. You couldn't hear it a ton, but the fans did not seem happy.
No, they weren't. And half of us were already tipsy before.
I can confirm that I wasn't watching.
I had no choice to watch. I was there. So
but going forward, good vibes only.
Good vibes only. We are
going
going to go. What's our record? 8-9-3.
8-9-3.
Okay, so what's the final record looking like? So I'm just saying, are we still going to go like 72 9 and 3?
9-2.
Oh, really? I was thinking
I don't even know if those numbers add up.
9 and 2. Yeah, neither do I.
Especially because we already got a 3 at the end, so we got to subtract 1 out of there somehow.
Oh yeah, you're right. So
yeah, you had hold on. So I think it's no, that's accurate. No, it would be 69 10 and 3. We're gonna get one more loss,
Okay,
and then
yeah.
we're running house.
2 points.
Running house.
2 games.
That's it. All right, boys. Final thoughts.
Full steam ahead.
Let's go.
Full steam ahead. You mean hopefully they get a new coach?
We knew it was coming. We can turn the page.
Bingo.
Yep. That being said, though, we do wish Jim Montgomery all the best. I mean, we can talk about him all we want in a negative fashion, but he's still a guy at the end of the day. I'm sure he'll find the right fit for him. He's a great coach, but he was an even better person if you had the pleasure of meeting him. So thank you, Monty. It's unfortunate, but this is the Sacco time.
It is Sacco time.
Let's go, baby.
Shout out to the Dirt Boys for turning the page.
Fuck you, Higgy.
Dirt Boys. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for episode 20 and a half, the emergency podcast following the Jim Montgomery firing and the first edition of Bare Naked News. Go check out our website, HiBruiNation.com, for our blogs, pre-games, recaps, and much, much, much more. Make sure to connect with us on Twitter, Bluesky, and through our website so we can hear your thoughts and maybe get you, read some messages on the pod or play some voice memos so you can hear yourself on here. Remember to like, comment, subscribe on all platforms. As always, we love you guys, and go Bruins.